Howdy, folks and friends. I have something interesting I need to share with you. Recently, I was reminded of Wattpad. If you don't know what Wattpad is, it's a writing sharing website that really got popular due to fanfiction and fanfiction culture as a whole. I've read my fair share of fanfiction, but this one takes the cake. Or should I say chocolate frog? 'Cause it's a Harry Potter fanfiction. Editing me, put a big disclaimer before we get into this. Do I love Harry Potter? Kind of. Do I love She Who Will Not Be Named? This bitch? No. We don't stand her in this house. But does Harry Potter hold a very special place in my heart? Yes. It is one of the earliest series that I ever latched onto as a kid. It brought me so much hope and enjoyment and fun. So we're still going to talk about it. This video is also only going to cover the first 7 chapters of the book. It's only 15 in total, but there's so much jam-packed into each chapter that if I want to make this video a somewhat reasonable amount of time, I have to cover it in 2 parts. So cozy up, light a candle, make yourself a hot beverage, and get ready to read a terrible, terrible fanfiction. Our story today is titled My First Gryffindor Love. It was completed on Monday, November 12th, 2012. Here's the summary. It's Ivana Malone's first year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, along with her best friend Chloe Harris. Both coming from wizarding families, they are expected to be good kids and put in good houses. Both are put in Gryffindor and are excited, but Ivana, more so than Chloe, when she meets a particularly cute boy named Seamus Finnegan. Thus begins her crush on him that will grow and blossom as they age and move through the years at Hogwarts. So it seems that we're dealing with some sort of self-insert, which makes sense for when this fanfiction was written and what was popular on the site of Wattpad at the time. It also seems like the author was hoping to make this into a series, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. We have to even see if this first book is any good. Our story opens with our main character, Ivana, and her best friend, Chloe, getting onto the Hogwarts Express. Chloe immediately mentions how her mom isn't around to say goodbye, which then prompts Ivana to give us, the audience, some very direct background. I wish my mom were here, to say goodbye, Chloe sighs. Yeah, me too, I agree. Chloe and I have known each other since we were little and have been best friends since. Our parents knew each other growing up, so us being friends was obvious. Before anything else can really happen, the door to their train compartment opens, revealing 2 very familiar characters. I turn my head around to see a girl with brown, bushy, and frizzy hair in the threshold, along with a boy who has short brown hair, buck teeth, and brown eyes. The girl has a brown trunk, and the boy has a black worn one. The 2 kids join our main character and her built-in bestie, quickly revealing themselves to be Hermione and Neville, if you hadn't already figured that out. The 4 of them all exchange pleasantries before Ivana asks Hermione if it's her first year. Hermione then takes the opportunity to casually bring up that she's Muggle-born and how it's really exciting to find out the truth behind her magic. This prompts Ivana to not so subtly launch into more of her backstory by info-dumping about herself and Chloe. That's interesting. Chloe and I are from wizarding families, all of whom have gone to Hogwarts. My mother was in Gryffindor and my dad was in Ravenclaw. They met during their 5th year and they fell in love, I tell Hermione. Chloe has already heard the story 100 times, so she begins talking to Neville. For some reason, this then prompts Neville to launch into his traumatic backstory. My parents are in St. Mungo's, as they were tortured by a Death Eater and now my grandmother takes care of me, Neville explains. The Death Eaters tortured them so much that they almost died, Neville says on the verge of tears. My buddy, my homie, my pal, you do not have to trauma dump on these other 11-year-olds, but I digress. Chloe ends up being a fucking saint and tells him that it's okay and tries to kind of help him cope with this social blunder he's made. Neville then whips out Trevor a few seconds later and tells him that his grandmother got it for him, completely ignoring the dramatic backstory he just dumped on everyone. Chloe tries to be nice and asks if she can hold Trevor, and take a guess about how that goes. When Neville is sure that Chloe has him, he lets go and puts his hands in his lap. Chloe strokes the top of his head and smiles at the toad. Then, without any warning, Trevor jumps out of her hands and onto the floor. Neville yelps and jumps onto the floor, trying to grab him before he leaves the room. But when Neville lands on the floor with a thud, Trevor jumps out of the compartment and into the hall. Neville jumps up and runs down the hall, obviously causing Trevor to jump away. How many times can you use jump in a paragraph? Because she either feels guilty or because she's basically an NPC, Chloe goes to try to help Neville chase after the toad, while Ivana and Hermione sit silently in the compartment. This is one of our first instances of silence being used as a plot device. Ivana specifically likes to pass time by staring off into space, almost like an NPC herself. If there's no real plot happening and no one to talk to, she kind of goes into this default mode. After 10 minutes of silence, Chloe and Neville return empty-handed, claiming a group of older kids got in their way and made them lose track. Neville immediately shuts down after this, while Hermione decides that even though no real time has actually passed since them getting on the train and it departing the station, that now is the perfect time for her to go to get dressed into her robes. And while she does this, Ivana, Chloe, and Neville sit in silence until she returns. After some more silence, because nothing relevant to the plot is happening yet, Hermione gets the bright idea for them to go looking for Trevor again. Then, all of a sudden, Hermione bolts up and says, "I have a brilliant idea. We can go compartment to compartment and ask if they've seen the toad." "I guess that might work," Neville sighs. I stand up and look at Hermione. "That's brilliant. I'll help, and Chloe can too," I say, looking at her. "I was actually thinking about staying here with Neville. He looks too upset to try," she says, scratching his back. "Thanks, Chloe," Neville says. Hermione and I look at each other and shrug our shoulders. I'm sorry, but Neville's actions just make me picture him as Ross from Friends after he's all mopey and everything. The two end up leaving the compartment, deciding that Hermione's gonna go one way and Ivana the other, and this is where we are so casually introduced to a few main characters. I walk only about 5 steps until I am at the neighboring compartment door. Inside are 3 kids, 2 on one bench and 1 on the other. 3 boys, to be exact. One boy has platinum-colored hair and gray eyes. The other 2 boys are a bit fat and both have brown hair. I knock on the door and hope that they care to answer. The pale-haired boy looks up and gets up to open the door. He slides the door open and looks me up and down. "What do you want?" he asks rudely. I am taken aback when I realize who it is. His name is Draco Malfoy, and he is a pureblood boy. His whole family has been in Slytherin too, which means he will be too. Does Ivana just have, like, an internal database on everybody? Did her parents quiz her at breakfast on who's who in the wizarding world? Like, does she have weekly tests to make sure she can list off someone's entire family history at, like, the drop of a hat? Draco, kind of less surprisingly than Ivana, also seems to know all of Neville's business. Draco is also weirdly rude, which I don't think is a characteristic of him in the books. Granted, it's been a long time since I've read them, but I still don't think that he's this much of an asshole. Like, yeah, he's a bully, there's no denying that, but I don't think he was ever this cruel. Ivana also explains at some point that she's looking for a toad for a boy named Neville, and this is his response to it. "Why would I care? His last name is Longbottom, isn't it? The son of the 2 Aurors who are in St. Mungo's? I know him, and I don't give a damn about him. Or his toad for that matter, so you can just leave," he says as he closes the door. Luckily for Ivana, this whole interaction just like rolls off her back because she continues on to the next compartment where she meets no one in particular. Honestly, kind of a relief because I was half expecting this author to just rewrite the whole story and have Ivana find Harry and Ron since she's already met Hermione and Neville, but that's not the case. Instead, she finds 2 redheads and assumes that they are obviously the Weasley boys and says that they're probably the twins. Ivana asks about the toad. They've never seen the toad, so Ivana leaves and returns to her compartment. I guess she operates on like a 3 strikes you're out type of thing. When Ivana gets back to the compartment, Hermione is still out and about, presumably checking more than 3 compartments. But it doesn't take Hermione to return with her own news, and no, it's not about the toad. "But something interesting happened," Hermione starts. Chloe turns around and I do the same. "I met Harry Potter," she tells. I snort laughter and Chloe rolls her eyes. "Yeah, I bet you did," Chloe says sarcastically. "No, really, I did," Hermione exclaims. "Yeah, I'll believe it when I see him at the sorting ceremony." I laugh. Hermione rolls her eyes and pulls her trunk down. She pops it open and takes out a book. Hermione reads while Ivana stares out the window, and the rest sit in silence. Eventually, Ivana's thoughts are interrupted by Hermione suggesting that she change into her robes. Chloe follows Ivana, and the two go on their way, and as they're walking, they have this little exchange. I like her. She seems nice, I say about Hermione. Yeah, she is nice. And really smart, too, Chloe adds. Like, what are you guys basing this off of? Because, like, we as the audience know Hermione is smart and nice because presumably we've read the books or at the very least seen the films. And obviously, like, Ivana knows who everyone is because she's quizzed at breakfast every day, but what's Chloe's baseline? Like, so far, all Hermione has done is ask them some questions and came up with the idea to go compartment to compartment. That's not so much as smart in my mind, so much as just good problem-solving skills. Anyway, while Chloe changes into her robes, Ivana starts heading back to the compartment when she's tapped on the shoulder by one of the Weasley twins. Oh, hi, I say. Is this the Toad you were looking for? He asks. In his hand is Trevor, our little missing pet. Ivana thanks them and takes Trevor before asking, which Weasley twin are you? While I was taken aback by this line of questioning, he wasn't, and simply just tells her that he's in fact George. She thanks him by his name before hurrying off to show Neville that she's got the Toad, which of course he's ecstatic and runs off with Trevor in his hands now to go thank George directly. I guess Neville seems to also low-key know who everybody is because he does this with the confidence of someone who knows the Weasleys by heart. So I guess we're going off this assumption that all of them are just quizzed and know everybody's business. Like, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, after he's gone, the trolley comes by and Ivana gets to brag about her chocolate frog card collection to Hermione, who gets like a short little lecture from Ivana on what they are. Ivana even gets a duplicate, which she is happy to give to Hermione for her own collection to start. This whole bit is played off sort of like the chocolate frog card discussion that was had by Harry and Ron in the original series, so I can only imagine that the author wanted to play off of that a little bit, or to really seem like they knew what they were talking about to really draw in readers, which you could also do that by having better grammar structure and sentence structure, but who am I to say? The group eats their snacks, Chloe falls asleep, and then they all just conveniently time skip to when they arrive at the train station. In the chaos of grabbing their trunks, Trevor escapes again, but the four of them don't chase after him this time. Instead, they just kind of like watch him hop away. Ivana ends up actually telling Neville that Trevor's gonna be fine and that they'll find him again, which then Neville just nods. He just nods. Which, I don't know about you, but if that were my told, I'd be panicked because I already freaked out when I lost him in a, like, moving train that was, like, enclosed. The station's just, like, outside, near the woods, in a place that Trevor is unfamiliar and very ill-equipped to be just free roaming, but he's unlocked free roam mode. Obviously, there's not enough time for them because the group is waved over to where all the first years are gathered. First years over here, I hear. I tug on Hermione's robe, telling her to follow me. She yells for Neville and Chloe to come, and we walk toward the voice. We break through a large crowd of older students to find another big group, these all being the first years. All right, first years, follow me, the voice booms. Then I see a big figure swing a lamp and see how tall he is. Blimey, that man is huge, I say to Hermione. She nods in agreement as we walk with all the other kids. We reach some boats and we wait at the shore. They all paddle up to Hogwarts. Chloe forgets how to close her mouth, so Ivana has to nudge her. Ivana also makes a comment about how Hermione has this, like, glint of happiness in her eyes, because why wouldn't you in this moment? And Ivana says how this must be so special to a Muggleborn, but, like, girl, is it not special to you? Hermione didn't know this place existed. You presumably did, because your parents quizzed you on everything, which means I have to assume they've told you about Hogwarts. So why are you not more, like, awestruck? Like, how are you feeling? Focus on you, Ivana. The first years get up to where Professor McGonagall is standing, and she says verbatim what she says in the first movie. Welcome to Hogwarts. Now, in a minute, you will enter through these doors and join your classmates, but first, you must be sorted. There are 4 houses, and they are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. When she says Slytherin, she looks directly at Draco Malfoy and frowns. I look over to him and see him smiling and nodding at the same boys from the train. Like, it's almost shot for shot or block for block from the movie. It's like the author just watched the film and then wrote down what was happening and then kind of like jammed their own story into it. And I guess that, like, that's what fan fiction is, but Come on, man. Usually there's some more creativity behind it. Trevor also takes this moment to make sure that everyone knows he's here, to which Neville cheers. McGonagall gives him the same disappointed look as we see in the movie, only it's described this time, and then says that the ceremony will be starting soon before walking into the Great Hall. It seems like the author really did just copy and paste the dialogue from these films, because we immediately start the next chapter with Draco clearing his throat. So what they were saying on the train is true then, we hear a voice start. Harry Potter has come to Hogwarts, it continues. I look up to see Draco Malfoy standing in front of all of us and looking at a boy only a few people away. Sure enough, it is Harry Potter, and he is staring at Draco. That's Crabbe, and that's Goyle. And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy, Draco says. Harry looks at him and frowns a bit. Then I hear a snicker coming from someone next to Harry. It's a red-headed boy with old robes, sure enough a Weasley. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask yours. Red hair and a hand-me-down robe. You must be a Weasley, Draco says rudely. The boy looks down and shrugs. McGonagall comes right back on cue, and then all of them enter the Great Hall. The sorting ceremony goes off without a hitch for the most part, the regular stuff happening as it normally does until it's time for Chloe to be called to be sorted. She ends up being a pretty quick sort, taking less than a minute, and then a few more go before it's Ivana's turn. I sit down uncomfortably and breathe deeply. The hat is placed gently on my head, and I hear a voice. Smart girl, that's good. Along with bravery, good, good. You are an adventurous, smart, and sociable girl. Maybe Hufflepuff? No, I have to be with Chloe. Oh, that new Gryffindor girl. She seemed attached to you in her thoughts. You are close friends, but I can't just put you in Gryffindor because of her. But you said I was smart and brave, something all Gryffindors mostly are. Please? I beg. There is silence. And then, Gryffindor! I smile and look at Chloe, who is sitting next to Hermione. I feel the hat being lifted off of me, and I run to Chloe and hug her. Next is Hermione, and then George. First of all, Ivana's first instinct was to be with Chloe. Like, a little codependent? Just a little bit. Honestly, though, what gets me most in this entire section is that she hugs Hermione after Chloe. That's fine. But then she hugs George? Like, that seems a little odd, right? Like, what, you guys have exchanged a handful of words and now you're, like, on hugging term? And again, I understand that everyone's like welcoming to the first years and it's all super exciting, but I don't know, just you talked to the guy twice and he gave you a toad. I don't know about y'all, but that would not prompt me to hug that person then. Just saying. George doesn't seem bothered by any of this though, and he then introduces Ivana to his brother Percy before she properly shakes hands with Harry and Ron. Ron, in this scenario, possesses the single critical thinking brain cell of the entire school and asks, "Why did you hug my brother?" He asks. "I met him on the train," I say. Ronald looks at me and shrugs. "Don't worry, Ron. She's nice," George assures. "Thank you," I say. George nods and turns to talk to his brother. Again, what criteria are we going off to qualify these people as nice? I mean, like with Ivana, she's obviously not evil, as like Draco's apparently implied to be with his snarky-ass comments and swearing, which again, I don't think he does. But Ivana has done like nothing besides try and help Neville. But then Ivana sees someone new, someone she doesn't have an encyclopedic amount of knowledge on. I look back up to the front to see a boy with short brown hair on the stool. He has a scared look on his face, as if he doesn't know his house fate. Is he a Muggleborn? "Gryffindor!" is yelled. He walks over and sits down next to a dark-skinned boy and high-fives him. Maybe they met on the train or were friends from before. "Harry, did you hear what his name was?" I ask. "Seamus Finnegan, I think," Harry says. I mutter. Seamus walks to us and shakes our hands. I smile at him, and he smiles back. "He's kind of cute," I whisper to Chloe when he leaves. "You think so?" she asks. I nod, and she rolls her eyes. After the ceremony ends, the feast begins, and instead of chattering excitedly, as kids often do, Chloe and Ivana eat some chicken and mashed potatoes, and then sit in silence for a little while. At one point, Ivana says it was like she had dreamed of which then prompts Chloe to lean over the table to hug her before saying literally the exact same sentiment as Ivana just said, minus a whole part about a big pile of chicken in front of her. So I guess we just no social boundaries. Ivana then spends some time talking to Fred and George, who I guess tell her a lot about Ron. I talked to Fred and George for a while and learn a lot about Ron. 1, he absolutely hates spiders. 2, he isn't the youngest, their sister Ginny is. And 3, he is an expert at wizard chess. He never loses, even to his oldest brother Bill. So is Ron, like, incapable of talking about himself? Has the author ever heard the concept of showing the audience and not telling the audience? Like the clearly unhinged girl that she is, Ivana then turns to Harry and asks, "So where have you been all this time?" Harry explains to Ivana very casually, and seeing no issue with this interrogation at the dinner table, that he has been living with his annoying aunt and uncle and cousin, who he names as if it really matters to Ivana. He also sort of low-key trauma dumps by saying, "I'm so happy to get away from them, considering they would make me work nonstop and never did anything nice for me." Ivana says later that he must have at least had a decent bedroom, but Harry has no issue shooting this down and revealing that he lived under the stairs. But instead of registering how fucked up that was, he just laughs this off with Ivana and continues to tell her about the woes of his life before his time at Hogwarts, to which then Ivana says, "Wow, that is nothing like I imagined Harry Potter living like," I comment in the end. To which then he replies, "Yeah, everyone seems to think that," which I guess honestly tracks given this interpretation of Harry we're getting, because he seems so chill about living under the stairs and getting socks for his birthday. So like, I don't know, Harry, in this world, do you not realize that you've been abused your whole life? Before we can delve deeper into this riveting conversation, we must remember that this whole story is about Ivana and her crush on one boy. But it's actually Chloe who tries to get Ivana to talk to him. "You should go talk to that Seamus boy if you like him so much." "Chloe, I just met the boy." "Yeah, which means it's the perfect time to get to know him." "Met him? Girl, you just saw him!" "Across a gigantic room full of people you haven't even really met yet. Calm down." Ivana decides to wait and think up a good question to ask, but she first has to finish her dinner. She's about to go over and ask her crush the perfect question, "What is your name?" but is blocked by Dumbledore, saying that the meal is over and that the prefects need to escort the first years to their dormitories. We spend the next few paragraphs following alongside Percy. The girls wave at some paintings and are particularly taken aback by the ghosts, which apparently their parents never mentioned. They'll make sure Ivana knows the whole Malfoy family tree by heart, but they won't tell her about the ghosts. Finally, they get to Gryffindor Tower and are allowed to explore. Chloe uses this chance to urge Ivana again to go talk to her crush, to which she then admits, "I'm kind of scared. I don't know what to say. I mean, I was going to ask him what his name was, but I don't think that would go too far." I shrug. "Just go try. Worst that can happen is he ignores you," she says. I think about it for a split second and nod my head. "That's true. Okay, I'll go over," I say. Chloe claps her hands and smiles. The conversation then goes about as well as you can expect from a fan fiction written in this way. Ivana introduces herself and then asks Seamus his name. He tells her and returns the question, and the whole time she's like coaching herself in her head. "What's your name?" I ask, even though I already know it, hoping a conversation starts. "Seamus, and yours?" he asks. "Ivana," I say. So far so good, I think to myself. Like, yeah. You've only said 2 things to him. It can't go bad. Seamus then throws me for a loop by asking Ivana if she's from a wizarding family, to which she replies yes, and then asks him the same thing. Seamus then gives us our brief explanation about his dad being a muggle and his mum being a witch, and we are spared direct quotes from the movie. They have a conversation about Seamus not knowing if he'd be in Gryffindor despite his mom having been one when she was in school. When Ivana asks why, he very clearly states, "Well, according to everyone I know, I have an unusual talent for destroying things. Mostly setting them on fire or blowing stuff up. Don't know why though." Seamus laughs. "Just Hitting the nail on the head. Telling, not showing, very direct and to the point. At least there's no room in this fanfiction for misconceptions. Seamus tells a story about blowing up one of his mom's vases growing up, and it's painful to read. I have to show you this. Yeah, one time I blew up one of my mom's fancy glass vases. That was around the beginning of me realizing that I was a wizard. Did your mom fix it? She tried, and did after a lot of effort. I felt so bad, I made her a card. Seamus laughs. I laugh along with him, happy that this conversation went somewhere. How old were you? I ask. About 8 or 9. Wow, that's funny, I say. Yeah, it was. My mom still has the card in her room, he says with a slight laugh. That's nice, I say. Yeah, I say awkwardly. So it's late and I'm really tired, so I'm gonna go up and sleep, Seamus says after a while. Oh, that's fine. Good night, Seamus, I say. Good night, Ivana, Seamus says as he walks up to his dorm. Chloe immediately rushes over to Ivana and asks her how it went before revealing that she was actually just watching the whole time, which, makes sense. They're in the common room. Everyone could have watched that train wreck. The girls end up going to bed, but not before they have another sappy moment between themselves about how they're just so over the moon that they're at school together. Honestly, if I was going to a wizarding boarding school with my best friend, I wouldn't feel the need to say how happy I am to be there, but my life is also not a poorly written fan fiction, so I digress. It's the next day, and Ivana is woken up by Chloe, who is lightly smacking her face. She also shouts loudly, to which Ivana cringes, and then she gets dressed in the quintessential fan fiction way. I slowly get out of bed and pick up my clothes for the day. I put on my white undershirt and my tie on. Next is my skirt and high socks. I slip my cloak on, and at this point, Chloe is sitting on her bed, dressed and ready to go down. I put my shoes on and nod to her. They get down to the common room to find Hermione sitting with another girl, who is revealed to be Lavender Brown. The girls exchange pleasantries and start a discussion, except for Ivana. She stares off into space until conveniently, Harry, Ron, and Seamus come down. Ivana nudges Chloe, who encourages her to go talk to him again, and this time Ivana needs less coaxing and immediately goes over, and then we get this dry-ass conversation. Good morning, I say cheerfully. Morning, he says less cheerful. Tired? Dean kept me up really late, talking. That's too bad. Yeah, I have a weird feeling I'm going to fall asleep at breakfast. I doubt you will. Let's hope not. Yeah. Well, do you want to head down to breakfast? Sure, I'm really hungry, Seamus says, and we start walking. I walk in the middle of him and Harry, Ron next to Harry. Ivana quickly abandons the girls and walks with the boys downstairs, sitting with them near the Weasley twins. Ivana and George exchange good mornings, to which Fred asks, I don't get a hello? Fred asks. No, you don't, I laugh. Well, that's nice, Fred laughs. Yes it is, I say, and begin spreading some jelly on a piece of toast. Chloe, rightfully, confronts Ivana when she and the other girls get down, accusing her of ditching them. You ditched us, Chloe accuses. Yeah, so? I can't go down to breakfast with some other people? I guess so, but I thought we were going to walk down to breakfast together. You were talking with Hermione and Lavender. I went to talk with Seamus, and then we decided to come down. No harm, no foul. Chloe sighs. I guess not, Chloe says. Just sit across from us, no big deal, I suggest. For someone who spent the day attached at her best friend's hip and had way too many cheesy appreciation scenes with her, Ivana is just immediately abandoning Chloe for a boy that she met yesterday. Barely. They've had one conversation, and Ivana is fully committed and ready to drop Chloe, and just about everybody else, it seems. Chloe and the other girls join without too much more conflict, and after getting settled, Ivana asks Seamus if he's excited for classes. He says yes, except for potions, saying that he might not come out 100%. Right, you might just make something explode, I laugh. I just might, he laughs. I laugh along with him, enjoying every second of it. Okay. I remember being a preteen and having crushes and getting all excited about the guy I like talking to me, but damn, this is on another level. I get that it's fan fiction, but just, I don't know, man. It's draining me. They finish eating and decide to go get their schedules from McGonagall together, leaving all the other characters behind. Once they're back at the table, the others have almost finished eating, and so Seamus and Ivana spend the rest of breakfast comparing schedules. They learn that they have identical schedules, which, makes sense. They're first years. They kind of travel in like a pack. Chloe goes and retrieves her schedule with Hermione while Ivana and Seamus talk more about classes. She asks which one he's most looking forward to. They talk for a while, and we learn that Ivana is excited to fly a broom, and that Seamus didn't know much about the wizarding world until his magic started showing, which is what prompted his mom to start embracing it more, while his dad kind of steered clear of it all. When Hermione and Chloe return, they join the conversation, but not for too long, because Ivana debates if she should go grab her things now or wait until classes. Seamus then says to just do it now and that he'll end up going up with her. So this prompts Ivana to ditch the rest of the group, and they walk in silence until they reach the fat lady. Ivana then retrieves her items without issue and then waits in the common room for Seamus until she hears a big ruckus. I grab my brown book bag and go down to wait for Seamus. I hear a bunch of crashes and things falling. Seamus, I call up. Oh, sorry, having issues, he calls down. Hold on a second. I go to sit down in a big, red, and soft armchair as I wait. 5 minutes later, Seamus comes down, book bag full and his hair all messy. What was going on? I ask. I had some issues with getting all my stuff together. My wand fell behind my nightstand, so I tried to move it, but my lamp fell, causing the big crash. And some books fell on top of the broken glass pieces, making more of a mess. And then that's when you called up. I just grabbed the books, threw the books in the bag, and then tipped the nightstand over again, causing another crash. I grabbed my wand, and then I came down. Seamus explains and laughs. I roll my eyes and laugh with him. Ivana comments that it's going to be really fun cleaning all that up later, to which Seamus just groans, but they have no more time. They must get to class suddenly. On their way, some older students run into them in a hurry, which prompts uninitiated contact as they both take a tumble into the wall. They reach the room before anyone else, minus Draco and the guys, but this doesn't faze them. Ivana and Seamus flip through their books and just kind of ponder what they might do on their first day. Ivana ends up showing some slight disappointment when she realizes that they likely won't be using animals this year. Eventually, the other characters join, Hermione noting that they made it to class with 15 minutes to spare. Class begins, McGonagall does roll call, Ivana notes to herself that Harry and Ron are absent, and then McGonagall teaches them the rules of class. Ivana notes during this that she's not really worried about being a bad kid, so she dismisses all the rules. McGonagall then tells them to start copying some stuff down from their book, but it's Ivana's turn to be the overachiever, and cites to herself that she hopes by doing this to either divert the class from having to do their assignment, or that if she does, she might get on the professor's good side. And she does this by asking, Professor, I heard that you're an animagus. Is that correct? I ask. Yes, I am, she answers, curious about where I'm going with my question. Isn't that a form of transfiguration? Yes, but it's a very advanced form. Could you show us how you transform? I ask eagerly. She debates it for a while in her head, it seems, and then shrugs. I don't see why not. She takes a deep breath, and before our very eyes, our transfiguration professor turns into a calico cat. My jaw drops, and Seamus nudges me. I close it, but continue to look at our professor. Blimey, that's brilliant! I commend. The cat nods her head and jumps up onto her desk. I watch in amazement as she nods to our books and supplies, and we get to work. They keep working until Harry and Ron burst in, right on schedule, right on cue, and we're treated to yet another case of copying verbatim the lines of the film. Harry, could you imagine the look on McGonagall's face if we were late? Ron asks Harry. Harry nods and they look at the cat. I look at Seamus and stifle laughter. The cat looks at them and then jumps towards them. She transforms back to human form and walks around the two boys. That was bloody brilliant, Ron exclaims. Well, thank you, Mr. Weasley. Now, would you like me to turn you and Mr. Potter into a pocket watch? That way one of you might be on time. We got lost, Harry says. Well, perhaps a map. I trust you don't need one to find your seats. Ivana finishes before most of the class and takes the opportunity to put her head down. She must have fallen asleep at some point because Seamus has to nudge her at the end of class. Also, apparently, the bell rang, which I don't know if Hogwarts is equipped with a bell system, but I digress. They move on to Charms class. Ivana notes to herself that Charms sounds like it's going to be a lot more fun than Transfiguration, but still winds up being bored by the end of class. She ends up doodling on some parchment, even giving some to Seamus for him to doodle on too. Ivana makes a picture of a dragon breathing fire, classic fantasy, to which Seamus compliments her work. Before they can pack up, she peeks at his drawing to see his depiction of their next class, which is potions. But before they can even get to class or really even leave Charms class, Ivana is waved over by Chloe and Hermione. Ivana finally parts herself from Seamus and goes to talk to her literal best friend, who asks how her day's been going. Good, Seamus and I have been getting along. Lovely, Chloe exclaims. Yeah, I really like him. He's so nice and funny, I say. Chloe and Hermione look at each other and smile. I'm glad you two are getting along, Hermione smiles. I smile and run to catch up with Seamus. Like, I remember acting this way as a kid a little bit, having my friends watch from a distance when I went and go talk to my crush and stuff, but never once did I ever, straight up abandon my friends to go talk to a guy I just met. And also, never once did they ever act like this when I came back. They get to potions, and Seamus properly introduces Ivana to Dean Thomas. They exchange hellos and also a formal handshake. Eventually, Chloe comes over and asks to sit by Ivana, which she's like, of course. Not at all in line with how you've just kind of abandoned her all day and sidelined, but whatever. Seamus and Ivana talk about buying supplies for the school year, mostly because Seamus goes on and on about how he struggled to get the right items for class. When Snape dramatically enters, we get to read word for word his dialogue from the film, and the author also does this for the whole, calling out Harry scene. Again, word for word, not a single thought put in, just verbatim. I love this. What a fulfilling reading experience that I am having. After copying down the shit that Snape says about Wormwood, the Draught of Living Death, and the Bezoars, Seamus whispers to Ivana that he's definitely not going to have a good year. Ivana then tries to ease his worries by saying that she'll help him. And this immediately is put to the test because Snape tells them to brew a sleep draught. Seamus then asks for a sprig of lavender from supplies that Ivana gathered, but this kind of calm doesn't last much longer. 3 minutes pass until the moment I was partially waiting for and partially dreading. It was silent, and then I hear a large boom. I jump and look over to Seamus. His cauldron exploded and his hair was in a mess. Black stuff was all on his face, along with a surprised expression. Snape is behind him, frowning. Tisk, tisk. Miss Malone, please escort Mr. Finnegan to the hospital wing. I nod and Seamus and I walk out. On the way, Ivana low-key laughs at Seamus, but tries to play it off like, no, it's because you totally manifested this happening. And then only after saying this does she finally ask if he's okay, which, again, girl, if you have a crush on him and he's hurt, you shouldn't be laughing. You should be, consoling him. I would have been trying to play nurse over my fucking crush, but I don't know. Ivana, you do you, girl. Ivana drops Seamus off with Madame Pomfrey and returns to class to find her cauldron gone. Chloe tells her that Snape made her move it, but when Ivana tries to go grab it, Snape just, stops her and says that she's gonna get a 0 because she was absent for most of class. And instead of being like, well, that makes 0 sense, Ivana just kind of rolls over and shrugs. Doesn't fight back. No explanation needed. Nothing about, how she was injuring or escorting an injured student. She just, I don't know, blindly accepts this. It's baffling to me. I don't understand this character. Ivana takes up doodling again until class is over, and then they all go to lunch. Of course, they walk in silence, and Ivana stays that way because Seamus is gone, so she just doesn't talk during lunch, I guess. She notes that Hermione and Chloe are talking, though, so it's I don't know, dude, join the fucking conversation with, your best friend and your new friends. Just because Seamus isn't here doesn't mean you have to go fucking mute into your little default mode or whatever. Chloe finishes her food and actually calls out Ivana for being really quiet, which, good for you, girl, standing up for your actual friend and checking to make sure she's okay. Ivana doesn't seem to really be fazed by this, though, and instead is yeah, I'm good. Let's just go to our next class. They arrive at flying class. Ivana gets her broom up pretty quick off the ground, unlike Chloe, who takes 5 tries. Everything's going fine and dandy until the whole Neville thing happens. You know the drill. Madame Hooch recites her line verbatim before exiting the field. Draco and Harry do their thing. Chloe and Ivana comment on Harry's innate flying skills after he's escorted off, and then they just head to astronomy. And I swear, if the rest of the chapters are this long, drawn out, and just every little detail of every little day in the most monotonous way possible, I'm gonna Avada Kedavra myself. Eventually, we are done with astronomy, herbology, and history magic. They all come and go, all very slow, very boring, and it all drags on. They end up back in the common room. Dean asks Ivana if she thinks Seamus will be okay. She reveals that he was expecting something like this to happen, which confuses me a bit because I feel like Seamus would have talked to Dean about this since they met before he and Ivana did, but I don't know, whatever. Nothing here makes sense. At dinner, Seamus finally gets to rejoin the group, mentioning that he got to take some medicine and have a nap. He asks about Neville because he did see him in the hospital wing, and then Ivana reports back the harrowing tale about what happened. They all then eat in silence before heading up to retire for the evening. Before that actually happens, we have this interesting little plot twist, lore drop, big reveal for the end of the chapter. Seamus is almost all the way up the stairs when I call after him. Yeah, what is it? Oh, by the way, I just wanted to tell you that I accidentally gave you a valerian sprig and not a lavender sprig. That's probably why your cauldron exploded, I admit. Seamus stares at me in disbelief. Really? Yeah, I'm sorry. Could have been worse. But next time, check what you hand me before it's in my hand, he laughs. Will do, I laugh. Totally unfazed, not even a bit disgruntled. Seamus is just like, oh, well, it didn't kill me, so like, no worries. My buddy, my homie, my pal, you are allowed to be ticked off. I would have thrown hands, or at the very least cussed Ivana out like a little bit. That's where I thought the end of the chapter was going to be, but no. We get one more internal monologue from Ivana before she falls asleep. Man, what a crazy day, I think to myself. I landed my crush in the hospital wing, I saw a kid fly in the air and hurt himself, sat through a bunch of boring classes, and survived my first day at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry without any injury. Let's just hope I can keep this going for the rest of the year. That is about all I can muster from one night. I had every hope of finishing recording this in one night, but I can't. This has done a number to my brain, and I already had to read through this fic multiple times to write this script that I'm reading from, so I'm going to give my brain a break. Day 2 of recording this nonsense. We're blessed with a 2-week time jump before our story picks up again. This chapter opens with Ivana, again, telling, not showing, how classes have been going. We learn in the span of about 2 paragraphs that transfiguration is slow. We hear about Seamus winding up in the hospital again because of Charms class with the whole Wingardium Leviosa thing. And that Snape is unfair to Ivana because he hates her and that she's a disruption to class. He also hates Seamus more than her, so I don't know. I think Snape just hates everyone. We also learn that Ivana loves flying class and reveals that she's one of the best flyers, after Harry, of course, who's now no longer in the class, which means that now she and Draco are competing for the role of #1 flying ace for Madam Hooch. This kind of leads us perfectly into the whole plot of this chapter, which is Quidditch. Ivana goes down to breakfast with Chloe, Hermione, and Ron. They're all together. She asks at one point where Harry is, and then they have to remind her about the match, which she just mentioned in like a previous paragraph that was the whole point of the day, so not quite sure where her brain went in like the 20 minutes it took for them to get to breakfast. We also get a quick exchange between besties before Dean comes down and asks Ivana if she has seen Seamus yet. Seamus not down here? He asks. No, I figured he was still asleep, I say. I didn't see him up in the dormitory. Oh, great. Seamus is missing in the Quidditch matches today. That's fun. I sigh and finish eating. Yeah, I bet we'll have to find him, so the teachers don't freak out. Dean sighs and eats a bit. Apparently, it's sort of implied that Ivana and Seamus are like tied at the hip, despite it only being 2 weeks since they really started like hanging out and talking. Or at least Dean kind of implies it to be that way. Like, obviously, it's very clear to everyone who looks around that Ivana has a crush on Seamus, or at the very least has some sort of, like, middle schooler thing, but I don't know why we're expecting them to keep tabs on each other. That's a bit much. After Dean eats, he and Ivana decide to go looking for Seamus. Dean suggests that he could be in one of 3 places, either a classroom, the hospital wing, or Gryffindor Tower. The last one to me doesn't really make sense because Dean came down from the dormitory and then said that Seamus wasn't there, so I don't know why they think he'd be up there unless he just did a big old loop and just avoided everyone. They decide to check the hospital wing first, which honestly makes the most sense given Seamus' nature. When they get up there, though, Madame Pomfrey is confused because Seamus isn't in tow, and these 2 kids seem uninjured and relatively healthy, so they have to ask specifically if she's seen Seamus today, which gives us this awesome line. No, not since Friday. Thank heavens, that boy is more trouble than he's worth, Madame Pomfrey exclaims, and walks to her office. Ivana and Dean leave and decide to try the Gryffindor Tower next, which is totally empty except for nearly headless Nick. Ivana checks that Nick hasn't seen Seamus, which, of course, he hasn't either, so they're down to just any classroom, which, given what we know of Hogwarts Castle, could be one of any 20-plus classrooms, probably. At first, I was actually kind of worried that we'd be spending most of this chapter just going room to room, or worse, just repeating Ivana's classic 3 strikes you're out type deal and then giving up. But instead, they just decide to go to the Transfiguration classroom first. McGonagall's there, but she hasn't seen Seamus and says that he better be to class on time, which reasonably puts even more of a fire under Ivana and Dean's asses. They check back at the Great Hall, where they ponder out loud for a little while until Hermione gives a very on-brand suggestion. "Have you tried the library?" Hermione asks thoughtfully. "Hermione, that's the last place Seamus would be," Dean laughs. "You could at least check," she says. I look at him and sigh. "It's worth a try. At this point, I'm almost willing to go anywhere," I say. Apparently, despite not having taken any divination classes, Hermione is right. They find Seamus, who informs his very frantic friends that he wants to invent a spell, and this segues into the whole turning water into rum thing. They all make it back down to the Great Hall, and Ivana and Dean have to give Hermione some credit, much to their chagrin, that she was right. They have one class, Transfiguration, which lasts for literally 1 paragraph before they're then prepping for the Quidditch match. Ivana, Chloe, Dean, Seamus, Hermione, and Ron all go down to the Quidditch pitch to watch the game. Ivana mentions Hagrid by name this time, as they all kind of gather around him, like we see in the blocking of the movies. The match goes about as you expect. Things are fine at first. Harry's nervous, and then his broom starts doing its little spasms. Nothing actually out of the ordinary occurs this entire scene. We just hear about the match from Ivana's perspective, and honestly, folks, it's bad. Choppy sentences, little to no natural flow. It's just like before. Scenes from the movie written out in this author's style. At one point, after it's really obvious that Gryffindor has won, Ivana mentions that she's not really sure what to do and just kind of stands around. After lunch and chatting, Chloe and Ivana actually spend some time together and we're blessed with yet another sappy friendship scene. Chloe lays down on the couch and puts her hands behind her head for support. "You know, I really like it here." "Same, but what brought that on?" "I don't know, I just do. I feel like we're family." "Okay." "Never mind, I'm just really happy." I figured. I laugh, and we relax in silence. Dean and Seamus come up soon. Dean and Ivana end up playing some wizard chess while Seamus watches. Ivana tells Dean to shut up like multiple times, even though he's just like playfully teasing her. And it's unclear if she's actually upset or it's just her way of teasing Dean back. But I'm guessing based on the fact that she keeps saying it over and over again that she's actually kind of ticked off that he's winning. Eventually, Ron wanders over at some point, and either to help diffuse the tension or because he actually kind of feels bad for Ivana, he starts whispering hints to her so that she ends up winning, because main character bullshit. Ivana wakes up the next day, states that she's feeling very happy for some reason. She can't quite pinpoint why. She just is and just kind of says it. Chloe ends up being asleep, and Ivana does one nice thing for her friend and just lets her sleep. Honestly, I was half expecting her to wake up Chloe with some slaps like she did on the first day of school, but we're a bit more mature than slapping our friend awake. She ends up breaking an entirely different social boundary though when Ivana gets downstairs. When I get downstairs, I see Hermione sitting at a table reading a big book. I grab the chair next to her and look over her shoulder. "Can I help you?" she asks. "No. But are you going down to breakfast anytime soon?" I ask. Hermione isn't fazed, though, and happily just puts her book away, citing that she was actually waiting for someone to go down with. So I guess it's all just fucking, I don't know. Once they started eating, Hermione asks Ivana why she seems so happy today, and Ivana still doesn't quite know why, so she tells her that, and then they just eat in silence until the rest of them come down for breakfast. We're treated to a very boring paragraph about Transfiguration class where McGonagall just talks about their recent mini-exam and alludes to the fact that Hermione and Chloe did the best in the group. We got some interesting information about potions as well, which I'm just going to read to you because I can't summarize it. You have to hear it. Classes are boring up until potions. Snape tells us we are going to brew a new and partially complicated potion that most of us will have trouble with, as he looks toward Seamus, Ron, and Harry. We all laugh quietly, and when we finish, Snape yells at us to get to work. He tells us the page number, and we start preparing. Seamus has a problem lighting the fire for the cauldron to brew over, and Ron, like always, has a problem finding the page. I sigh, rip the book from his hands, and flip to the correct page and hand it back to him. "Thanks." "No problem," I say, and get to my own potion. I first gather all my ingredients and put them properly around me, my solid pieces close to me, my liquids in a vial holder next to the cauldron, and everything else behind the cauldron. Whereas the boys just lay them down and make a big mess. We all start talking and asking for help. In this class, there are only 3 people who understand this, and that would be Hermione, Chloe, and sometimes me. But this potion is really complicated. It's the cure for boils, and even though first years are taught it, it's really hard for me. And apparently Ron as well, since he either can't read or is just being stupid.
What?
I roll my eyes when I see him ask Harry what to do for the first step. I mean, seriously, just read the first sentence and do exactly what it says. It says, add 6 snake fangs into the mortar, and that's super easy. Even Seamus can do it, and that means it's easy. First off, you really are something, ain't you, Ivana? You really have a type of way about you that I can't really get behind. She finally gets a bit of her comeuppance when Snape catches her helping Ron. He asks if she's doing others' work again, to which Ivana replies yes. You'd think that at this point she'd have learned or would have already learned to not even get herself into this situation like most kids would. Ivana doesn't possess a single critical thinking brain cell, so when Snape goes to help Draco, she hurries back over to Ron to help him. Obviously, she gets caught and receives a detention from Snape and loses Gryffindor 10 house points. Ivana totally shuts down at this point and goes just to doodle in her notebook. Seamus then passes a note to her, and we're both blessed and a little bit cursed with this exchange. He opens his notebook and tears out a piece of paper and scribbles something down and passes it to me. I'm sorry, are you okay? It reads. I sigh and scribble yes back to him. Are you sure? You look like you're gonna cry. Yeah, but I'll be okay. I've never gotten in trouble like this before. Wow. Hey, after class, do you want a hug? I guess. I write back and sigh. As with most middle school hugs, this is a very anticlimactic event. After class, Seamus taps Ivana on the shoulder and reaches out his arms. She wraps her arms around his neck, very on brand for what this is. And then that's it. There's no oohs or ahs from classmates, no eternal monologuing from Ivana about how exciting this is that she's hugging her crush. Just done, move on, time to go to flying class. I would be having so much more of a fulfilling reading experience if we got more of that sappy, cringy, middle school internal dialogue from Ivana, but instead she's just bitching out Ron and coaching herself on how to ask someone their name. Is Ivana just autistic? Eventually it's detention time and Snape is just an ass. He tells Ivana to sit down and be quiet, and then yells at her to clean up the borrowed cauldrons and organize the storage closet. And when she asks for cleaning supplies to, do this task he's assigned her, he lets out a sigh and then throws some cleaner and a rag at her. Like, come on, man. We all know Snape's a bad guy, but he's not this bad. We get a very lengthy paragraph detailing Ivana cleaning the cauldrons on the floor and how uncomfortable sitting on the floor is. Like, yeah, girl, you're on the floor. This isn't prison, it's just detention. You're allowed basic rights. After scrubbing exactly 25 cauldrons, because she names it specifically, and organizing the supply closet single-handedly, which, in my opinion, should not be left up to an 11-year-old, Ivana is released from detention. She returns to see Hermione, Chloe, and Chloe's owl Quinn hanging out. She tells them about detention, citing that it was terrible, but not as bad as it could have been. I'm picturing the potions as like wizarding chemistry class, and think of like a modern school. You're after school, you're doing detention with your chemistry teacher, and they throw things at you and ask you to clean expensive and chemically laden materials. Like, as a former teacher, you'd be fired for that. If not, at the very least, put on suspension while they investigate. Ivana, though, just brushes all this off like it's no big deal, and she goes and meets up with Dean and Seamus to do homework, and they ask her about detention as well. She tells them, and then they start working on worksheets? I don't think Quirrell or any other Hogwarts professor was giving them worksheets. I don't know. Doesn't seem to line up with what I imagine as Hogwarts curriculum, but who am I to assume? We've reached chapter 7 now, finally, and we are blessed with yet another juicy time jump because, again, honestly, if I had to keep rereading these paragraph upon paragraph about classes and worksheets, I'm going to start looking at that creepy Inferi Lake with more and more intrigue because drown me so I don't have to keep reading this bullshit. Ivana mentions that Fred and George have told her that Hogwarts goes all out for Halloween and that there's a feast and candy and like nothing else, but apparently it's super important. On the day of Halloween, Ivana is woken up by Chloe standing over her with a creepy face. She kicks Chloe, who's then too busy cracking up
to really care that she just got kicked. Chloe then takes this also as a chance to be a bit of an ass back to Ivana by hurrying her up to get dressed so that they can go down to breakfast. In the Great Hall, Fred and George join Chloe and Ivana for breakfast and tell them more about what to expect for the day. "What's tonight?" Chloe asks before I can answer. Chloe, hold on. You pranked Ivana literally minutes before wishing her a happy Halloween. What do you mean, what's tonight? Eventually, they all get to Transfiguration, and Ivana spots Seamus. She asks him where he was at breakfast, and he says that he and Dean were hanging out. When Ivana finally finishes her work, she decides to doodle, like always, and spends the rest of class drawing out herself, Seamus, Chloe, Dean, Hermione, Ron, and Harry, all in different Halloween costumes. She depicts Hermione as a cat, Chloe's a zombie, Ron's a monster, doesn't say specifically, it just says monster. Dean, she draws as a Bertie Bott's every flavored bean. Honestly, kind of creative. Have to give her points where points are due. Harry's a ghoul. Seamus is a fairy. And Ivana is a vampire. When Seamus sees the doodle of himself, he gives Ivana a really type look. Then she just laughs. During potions, Ivana finds the lecture on Bezoars really boring, so she just fully tunes it out and continues working on her drawing. Seamus occasionally whispers to Ivana ideas to add to the picture, which I think is actually, like, kind of cute. Like, I have no issues with that. Then we get to Charms class, which throws me for a loop, honestly, because they're doing the whole Wingardium Leviosa lesson with the feathers, and we get a full recap of the original scene. But what confuses me most is that I thought we already discussed this scene. Like, did we not mention Seamus having to go to the hospital wing earlier? Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but like, I'm pretty sure she already mentioned this all in another chapter. "Mr. Finnegan, I think you better head up to the hospital wing, just to make sure nothing terrible has happened," Professor Flitwick says, and Seamus gets up. "Can Ivana come with me?" he asks, and Flitwick nods. We get up and exit the classroom and head to the hospital wing. When we arrive, Madame Pomfrey sighs and walks out to us. She examines Seamus, very simple, very boring. She says that he'll be fine so long as he doesn't do anything more reckless throughout the rest of the day, which obviously we can't promise, and then shoos them back onto class. At one point during History of Magic, Ivana notices that Hermione is missing and learns from Harry that Ron made her upset. Dinner time finally rolls around, and Ivana notes that Hermione is still absent from the gaggle of first years she hangs out with. "Ron, what did you say to her exactly?" I ask, assuming he'll know what I'm talking about. He chews, swallows, and wipes his mouth. "I was just telling Harry, Dean, and Seamus how she corrected me with an annoying tone and charms, and she got mad." "Oh, Ron, you're so stupid sometimes." "Girl, shut up. You have no place to talk." "You're stupid. You had to talk yourself how to say hi to someone and ask their name. Also, like, the whole looking over Hermione's shoulder and everything, girl, you got no place to talk." Anyway, this all blows over because the whole thing with Quirrell running in about the troll happens. Ivana runs over to Percy after Dumbledore tells all the prefects to take the kids over to their dormitories, and he hugs her, because I guess just Ivana's a part of the Weasley family and just whatever, they're all fine with her and chill, I guess, because she's nice. What really doesn't make sense, though, or I guess maybe it does, because this is a very badly written fan fiction, is what happens with Ivana and Chloe and everyone when they get up to the common room. I run to the couch and sit down in a ball. "Gosh, Ivana, calm down," Seamus laughs, and I hug him. "I'm scared," I whisper to him, and he sighs. "It will be okay. The troll won't come up here," he says, and Chloe comes and sits next to me. I look at her and she smiles. "Calm down," she whispers, and I breathe steadily. Dean comes over and sits on the floor in front of us on the couch. I let go of Seamus and sit up and look around. I see Fred, George, Percy, Lee Jordan, Oliver Wood, everyone. But Hermione, Harry, and Ron. "Where's Ron and Harry?" I ask, and my friends look around. "I don't know, I thought I saw them following us," Dean says. That's weird," Chloe says. Then I start to panic. What if the troll gets them?" I ask, and start to shake in a ball position. "I doubt it did," Seamus says, and hugs me. "Where's Hermione?" Chloe asks, and I start to shake. Seamus hugs me tighter, but like a friendly hug. We all wait in silence, and I stare into the fire. Then the portrait hole opens, and Ron, Harry, and Hermione crawl through with Professor McGonagall behind them. Seamus lets go of me, and I run to Hermione and hug her. Hermione tells them about what happened, and then they all just, like, go to bed. Ivana falls asleep thinking about Seamus's arm around her. Yikes, but
okay. You'd think this would be the end of the chapter, but it's not. We wake up the next day and it's chilly. And then when Ivana sees that it's chilly because it's snowing outside, she just screams. This, of course, wakes up all the girls in the dorm. And we learn from a very cringy anecdote told by Chloe to all the other girls in the dorm that Ivana just like loves the snow and likes to lay outside in blizzards, husky style.
Ivana rushes down to the common room and yells up on the boys' side for Dean and Seamus, who come down in a huge hurry 5 minutes later. They're all panicked that something bad has happened, only for Ivana to just scream again at the window. And then they notice that it's snowing, which, like, wouldn't you have also noticed that it was snowing when you woke up in your dorm and, like, looked out the window? They all decide to head down to breakfast at the Great Hall. Shall we go down to breakfast? Seamus proposes and links arm with me as a joke. And we head to the Great Hall. Our friendship is so strong, I don't think he realizes that I like him. I mean, I did hug him last night, and him having his arm around me was cool, but I doubt he'll think anything of it. But I sure did, and still am. We arrive at the Great Hall in a skipping fashion. Seamus and I sit down and begin eating, and our friends gather around us.
After a quick breakfast, Ivana asks Seamus if he wants to go outside with her. They do, and Ivana immediately lays down in the snow. Seamus walks over, gives her kind of a funny look, and then asks her why she's just laying in the snow. She like half explains that she does this because she likes the coldness, to then which Seamus says, "You're getting your clothes soaking wet. Get up. I don't want you to get sick." He laughs and extends his hand to me, and I take it. Ivana uses this moment to force a hug. Ew. When Seamus gives her a light squeeze during their embrace, her heart melts. And then she really gives a good think about this whole moment.
Do I really want us to stay friends forever? No, I don't, but I don't want to date him. Not this young. I mean, we're only 11. That's way too young. But I mean, I want to tell him, but I don't want to make it all awkward. We're really good friends, but I want him to know how I feel. Sigh. Why does this have to be so complicated? Then I make a final decision on what I'm going to do. When they release their hug, Ivana says to Seamus that she has something she wants to tell him, and he, very innocently, asks her what that is. I have a crush on you, I confess. He looks at me and steps back in shock. Intrigue. But that's all I've got for part 1. If you have predictions for what we're going to see in part 2, leave them below in the comments. If you have any other weird or cringy fanfictions that you maybe read around this time, that really sat with you and hold a special cursed place in your heart, comment the titles below. Maybe I'll do a video on them. Make sure you stab the like button. Make sure you pierce the subscribe button. And have a good day, be safe, make good choices, and I will see you in the next video. Adios!